then the Academy Awards, Steve Martin actually called me up. I didn't even know he knew who I was, and asked me to be one of the writers on the Academy Awards. And I said, but Steve, I've never written for anybody except me. I don't know how to do it. And he said, it's so easy. You write for yourself and then you give it to me. So I said, oh, okay. And I said, but if it's not funny, I'm going to feel bad. And he said, it will be my fault. So I said, okay, then. And it was so much fun.
Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Hello, I just got over the intro. So, I threw up over there.
Oh, okay.
I'm fine.
That's usually how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I should have briefed
I've
you.
recovered.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad. I should have briefed you. I feel bad. It is one of those things that I forget about constantly, and then we have a nice guest on, or like a distinguished guest, and they're like, okay. What should I do here?
There was absolutely nothing pink. And I'm a fan of pink. So next time, put a bunny, a flower, just something pink.
I will absolutely add a bunny in for you. That'd be. I'll be
like. But
I'm
aware of the world.
Oh yes. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So this is I have a couple of your other books. This is this your first time kind of dabbling into like past events, memoir area, like getting into nostalgia?
It is. Now, I'd always been thinking of writing, it's not called an autobiography anymore. It's a memoir.
Right.
So it's not spaghetti, it's pasta. It's not hitchhiking, it's Ubering. There are all these different things that we have to get acquainted with. Right. So I've been thinking about doing this, and I kind of dabbled, and I started writing it because I had like a whole, I've had a few lives. I'm like Shirley MacLaine, only I have pictures. So I went and because I was a dancer for 10 years on Broadway. Yeah. Yeah. And then when I was 27, I learned how to talk. I was a late talker. And then I became a comedian. And I said, I work with so many great people on Broadway, and I want to remember everything. Then the pandemic happened. And then I got tired of doing jigsaw puzzles. And I said, well, this is what I wanted to do. So this is the time I should do it. Nice. The universe is telling me to do it now. So I did.
Yeah. Was it kind of fun for you to go back through all that stuff? Like, are you good with nostalgia and like handling it and dipping into the memories?
It was because I had, everyone looks at me and they think, oh, she kind of skated through life. And because I stand up straight and I don't swear on stage. I do in my real life, but we don't have to go into that. And I just have like an image that people thought it might be easy, that I didn't have to go through all things that people have to go through, and did. So, I mean, I had a rough childhood. I left home at 15. I'm surprised. I really am proud of myself that I didn't end up in a gutter, because it could have happened. When you leave home, I have no parental guidance. I just kind of went on my own. I lived by myself, and I just turned out okay. So I was kind of very proud of that. Yeah. And I wanted to go through how all that happened. So that's what I did. And I divided it up into my 5 dogs, because I've always had dogs and they've always been my companion. And my latest dog, Betsy, is down here underneath this desk over here, because she follows me everywhere, and she's the best little dog. And my other dog died during the pandemic, and then I was without a dog for about 6 months, and then I started looking around, and one of my friends was involved with a rescue organization called the Little Red Dog, and they had just rescued this little dog who was on the streets of Hollywood, starving with a broken leg and an unproduced screenplay. And I said, I need this dog. So I took this little dog in. She weighed 7 pounds and had one leg going like this. And now she's the best little dog. And I'm going to bring her up in a minute, because she's asleep now, but I'll wake her up over there. So anyway, and I always grew up with dogs because I'm an only child. And, when I was a kid, it was my my brother, my sister, because Tiny was a girl, and Tiny was a German Shepherd, and I was evidently unaware how big she would get because I named her Tiny, and I didn't know a lot.
Yeah.
And then when I lived by myself in New York, I went on the road with a show called Zorba. When I was 16, I got my equity card when I was just 16, and I went on the road for a year with this show called Zorba with John Raitt and Cheetah Rivera. Do you know any of these people, or are they from the past?
Yeah, no, I know them. Yeah,
you know John Raitt. Well, John Raitt was a really good singer, and Cheetah Rivera is an all-time great entertainer. And no one would really talk to me. So I adopted a little stray dog. Well, and then oh God, they said, oh, this is a little poodle mixture. Well, it turned out it was a standard poodle in Afghan that was in some kind of shelter. And she ended up huge. And I was traveling around the country with this huge hairy dog. And there are pictures in there of my huge hairy dog. But I needed someone to talk to because everybody else was an adult. So Agatha was kind of, my best friend. And then I had Bonkers, which was from a rescue in Las Vegas. And he was in my shows for years. He played all the casinos with me. And there's good stories about. I'm talking too much. You talk.
No.
I'm enjoying it.
I love this. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'll tell you the story of Bonkers because my husband had never had a dog because his mother was crazy. His mother didn't even allow his father in the house. So this was a dog who got hit by a car. And what's with me and dogs with broken legs? But anyway, so we adopted Bonkers, and then I started working a lot in Las Vegas, and I was on the way to Las Vegas to do a show at the MGM. And I called up and I said, by the way, I'm bringing my dog with me. And he was a combination Wheaton and sheepdog. Again, big hairy dog. And they said, well, no dogs are allowed in the hotel because of insurance. And if the dog bites somebody, we're going to go broke. So you can't have a dog in the hotel unless he's in the show. So ding, 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 ding. That night, Bonkers was in the show. And he didn't do anything. He just would come on stage, and whatever he was already doing, I would quickly tell him to do. And he was a sensation. And he played about 8 casinos for about 10 years in Las Vegas. And he was the best ever.
Wow.
And then my daughter didn't like him because, again, she was little and he was, a 70-pound big hairy monster.
Sure.
So then we had a little dog, Twinkle, that somebody gave us. And then Twinkle didn't have any broken legs. I don't know what happened. I'm going to have to go back and break her leg. But she passed away during the pandemic, and now we have Betsy. So those are all my dogs. And so my life is divided up into my dogs.
Oh, that's awesome, though. What a great way to divide your life up. I would love if you were like, she didn't have any broken legs, but she did have a broken spirit. We wore her down.
There's no broken spirits here until I looked at that video
intro
that
I know.
introduced the show.
I'm going to get rid of it just for you now. That's my goal.
No, because we have to be aware, and then we have to have fun after that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Martin, who I've been married to for 700 years now. And I say, life is tough. Wear expensive shoes, because if your feet feel good, it like permeates through your body, because who wants to have your feet not feel good?
Yeah. You said something interesting before about cultivating kind of, the personality that you had, like, 'cause you had a lot of stuff happen to you, obviously in your personal life, but you chose not to have that show in your professional life, in your comedy career. Was that something that you had decided? Because that's a hard decision, I think, to make when you're going into comedy. You have to decide who you are and what your persona is going to be on stage. Was that a conscious decision, though, to go, okay, I'm going to leave that stuff behind and my comedy is going to be a different animal?
Well, I did include a lot of my comedy. My comedy included a lot of my fantasy life, and because I'm Jewish, and I said, first of all, let's talk about being Jewish. So one of my first jokes was, I come from a typical middle-class Jewish family. We were very wealthy. And that was not my real life, because we weren't very wealthy. But I said, how do I make that funny? So I switched it, and then I was an overprotected child. My tricycle had 7 wheels and a driver, things like that, because I was overprotected until my mother got sick, and then everything kind of changed.
Right.
And, all the focus was on my mother, who died very young. So I kind of made a fantasy life that was a part of my real life. Right. And it included who I really was. and but not the bad parts, because no one wants to hear the bad parts. Really, they want to come to laugh, and I don't want to bum people out and they go, boy, that was a sad comedy show.
Absolutely. I'm taking notes as we speak.
I mean, no one wants to say that was a sad comedy show I just saw.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so funny how many
the sadness.
It's so funny how many people think that we like whenever we say is absolutely 100% true, and I'm like, no, that's not real, or no, my father didn't do, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a weird thing to have to explain to people now, because I feel like people are so literal with like everything. It's so bizarre.
Well, everything has changed so much now. People say, when I'm doing a show, and sometimes people come up to me and they said, do you have advice for me? And, I don't, because I grew up, again, I think the 80s was such a great, interesting, and the 90s for comedy, when it was Catch a Rising Star and the Improv and the Comedy Cellar. And it was most of these comedians that, were around then are still around.
Yeah.
And one of my best friends, Louis Anderson, who I worked with forever, recently passed away. But, he was somebody that was in the clubs with me. And, Jerry was there, and Bill Maher was there, and Richard Belzer. And it was just a time that I don't think can be recreated, because I don't know if, I think people that go on YouTube, and it's kind of an isolated art, where it used to be a community art.
Right.
Where we would all get together and write jokes together and try out material with Gilbert Gottfried. And so, and I have to say, I really wanted to write this book too, because times are changing and baby boomers are going bye-bye.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I look back at the Rodney Dangerfield special, and so many of my friends, it's gonna end at some point, and I wanted to write everything down.
Yeah, I love that though, because that's so important. Like, that's when I was growing up. I mean, I literally do have I have a bunch of comedians' books. I just got to speak to Paul Reiser and hang out with him.
Paul and I worked together all the time. We were, always in the clubs together. He was such a great guy. I mean, he is a great guy.
Yeah.
But I remember he would just come to the club and call and say, "Is there anybody left down there?" And they'd say, "There's one person." And he'd say, "Is he a laugher? Because if he's a laugher, I'm coming." And Paul and I did this gig, and he'll tell, I don't know if he remembers, because we all do so many, but I just remember we did this gig in Canada a couple of years ago, and everybody was so nice to us. And it was a beautiful hotel, and a car came and picked us up at the hotel and then put it backstage. And, we had night coffee backstage, and everybody was there. So we did the show. And at the end of the show, everybody was gone. And we didn't know how to get out of the theater. And Paul said, "This is just typical show business. They got what they wanted from us, and now they're just left here. And we're going down hallways trying to find the exit door, and we had no idea how to get out." And maybe it's a Canadian thing, because it just happened to me about 2 weeks ago. I was in Canada again, and it was such a nice show and a great hotel. And they met me, and they took me the things, and the show was great. And at the end, I just said, "How do I get out?" And I walking around the halls. I said, maybe in Canada, this is what they do with comedians. They let them find their way out, but they're very nice when they put them in. So call me if anyone else has had this experience in Canada.
I absolutely will. I love how they've turned it into an escape room for you guys. Like, we're doing this.
It was. And this door number 1 or door number 2. How do we go? I swear, Paul and I were going down hallways for 20 minutes.
You better scour the internet and make sure they didn't film you guys doing it like they're pitching a reality show, like Rita Rudner and Paul Reiser alone. That
would be funny. I would approve.
I would absolutely watch that.
I approve. But to me, this was inconsiderate.
Yeah.
But anyway, we always had fun. And what's important was they laughed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we were mentioning Louis Anderson before, too, who I absolutely love, too. But he started out opening for you, right? You used to take him on the road with you, or vice versa?
No, we were co-headliners.
Co-headliners. Wow. Okay.
Always co-headliners, because we met on the Rodney Dangerfield special, because Rodney, again, I got to write about Rodney in my book, too, who was so nice to me. And he saw me at Catch Rising Star one night and said, "Come over here. I'd like to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, thank you so much. It's Rodney Dangerfield." And he said, "It takes a long time, kids. Sometimes you never make it." And I went, "Wow. Well, thank you for that."
Yeah.
And he said, Thank you for the encouragement. And he said, but then he continued and he said, but you're funny and I'd like you to be on my comedy special. And I went, yes,
Wow.
please.
Mm.
So, and then he was such a sweet guy. And there were so many people on that special. I mean, Sam Kinison was a friend of mine too.
Wow.
Who that was like the special where he broke out. So it was quite an honor that he did that. And Rodney was always very nice to me.
That's awesome. That's the one thing. Like, I really wish I'd gotten to meet Rodney at some point because I think he loved comedians in a way that most people probably do. Like most people in the industry probably don't.
I saw him a joke.
Oh, nice. Do you remember what it was?
Yes, it was terrible, and it's not politically correct. It was. It was a "she was so fat" joke, and I'm not allowed to say fat anymore. So I've changed the word in my act, and whenever I have the word fat, I've changed it to delicious. Ooh. And I say it's not fat, it's delicious. So I don't want to get bad mail.
No. Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
So, but it was okay. It was, can you go back in time? It was in the 80s, 90s, and he used to do the so fat jokes. And he said, okay, she was so fat, I got on top of her, my ears popped. That was the joke. And he paid me $50. But don't tell anybody, because then it was just one of the things I thought of. And I said, Rodney, over here, is this anything? $50, right here.
Oh, wow. That's fucking awesome. I like that you were talking about the camaraderie and stuff like that before. And that's something, you're right, I think has changed, like, which just kind of bums me out because that's what I used to read about. Everybody was like back in the day, like all hooked on stuff. Did you guys... was it something that you were aware of at the time? Like, did you because a lot of you like branched off to do amazing stuff. Like, really, when you think about it, like the whole history of comedy is like 80s and 90s, and everybody got a TV show. Everybody was doing movies. Were you aware of it at the time, or were you just working and moving forward?
I wasn't. I was aware that I was working and moving forward, but I wasn't aware how it was such a special time until later. But what happened was the convergence. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Cable and comedy, because cable needed cheap entertainment, and comedians, all we needed was a microphone.
Right.
So it was those two things, a confluence of events. Oh, I'm so educated, and I didn't go to any schools really. So but I did once read a book. So it just kind of evolved that those two things came together, and that was a boom time for comedy.
Right.
And also David Letterman.
Oh yeah.
Started, and he was in New York, and he was everybody's idol, and getting on the David Letterman. In my book, I have all about getting on the David Letterman show and how that happened, and everything was very exciting then. And New York was kind of, the place to be. And I think now it's very, very spread out, but I don't think it's any worse. Things just change, and things are different,
Yeah.
So
and maybe even a bit for the better to some extent too. I mean, like even after COVID, I think the comedy clubs kind of held on to what you guys did. You know what I mean? Because you guys were such a unique group of entertainers and group of comedians that gave the comedy clubs prestige, because they were like, yeah, we created, you know what I mean? They got to say like, we created so-and-so, and we got all these people, and they're the ones who hone their material here with us, and you could do the same thing. And then they held on to that for a few decades when it really wasn't the case anymore, because nobody was coming out.
Yeah. And now Catch a Rising Star is gone.
Like Catch a Rising Star is gone. The comic strip's not what it was. I mean, there's still like those core clubs, like the Comedy Cellar and the Comedy Store are like, I mean, every celebrity comic drops in there. You know what I mean? Those are like the two meccas, I think. And the Improvs, obviously, but the Improvs, I think, are more established, and they're all around the country, whereas the Comedy Store is only like...
That's a different thing. The Improvs became a franchise.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And they weren't exclusively a New York club anywhere. But the Improv in New York was a really, really special place, because it was really down and dirty. Yeah. And I remember I was in Annie on Broadway at the time, and I would go and look. First I wasn't allowed to go in, and I every Tuesday or every Monday was audition night, and you'd have to go and bring a blanket and sit on the floor all day, and then see if you got a number, and then the same thing with Catch a Rising Star, and then you get the privilege to hang out for free, which Chris Albrecht, who then became head of
HBO
at HBO and Stars and all these things, He was the one who passed me finally when I auditioned at 2 a.m. with nobody there, and I was allowed to watch comedians, and it was really a great time. And then it became a phenomenon in New York, and all these places had comedy nights, and they were really just bars, and they'd rented a microphone. And there was one right across the street from Annie. It was called the Alvin Theater at that point, and there was a little place called the Ye Old Triple Inn, and they did comedy one night a week. And I would go over there after Annie because I could get on because nobody knew about it yet. Right. So you would just get on any place you could and just talk into a microphone. And I'm so glad I did that. All the things that I did by accident, but they were good things. It turned out they were good things. I just like doing them. That's what I tell my daughter. As long as you like doing it, it's okay.
Was that were you communicating with your parents at the time? Because I can't imagine being, a young woman in New York at the time, having to sleep on a blanket, staying on a blanket until 2 o'clock in the morning to go in the club. Because I know, how everybody now, especially in my generation and the generation coming up, I feel like they're very, very, very close to their parents and not at all, the helicopter parent kind of thing. But I feel like you guys, when you left, they were like, see you later. No cell phone, no whatever.
Cell phones, no FaceTime.
Right.
No, nothing. No. There was a payphone when I moved in. I stayed at the Barbizon Hotel for Women.
Oh, okay.
For the first, September, October, November, 4 months before I went on the road with Zorba.
Oh, wow.
And my dad paid for the room because I had no money and paid for all my classes. And I would go down once a week and call them collect and say, hi, how are you? But then my mother died. And then he married this woman who hated me. And then she didn't want me in the house anymore. And then it was a mess.
Oh. So that's how it happened. I'm sorry, because I feel like it's such an interesting story. And I know you're such a happy person, but it's so intriguing. I'm going to buy this book just to read the back end of this story.
Ready to hear about my stepmother. Yeah, here's a picture.
Were they cool with you doing stand? What was it like? Was that an understood thing at the time? Because I feel like that was a hard thing to explain back then, right?
Well, my father, when I started getting into these Broadway shows, and it's hard to get into a Broadway show.
Yeah.
It's hard to get in. An equity card, and I started dancing when I was 4, and I was just. Okay. One of the things that was the only thing I was good at. I was a good dancer. I was very limber. I could turn, I could jump, I could do all and so I started working, skipping school when I was 14 and taking buses to Miami Beach and to get on in a show in Miami Beach because they started doing theater and I got in Stop the World. I stopped the world. I want to get off. And they paid me $100 a week. And I was so excited. And I just said I was in the hospital and they sent my work home. It was a very strange childhood. And then when I started getting into shows, my dad just wasn't a show guy. He didn't like shows. So I was in good shows. I was in Promises. And Michael Bennett choreographed, and I was in the show of the time, which was Follies, and that was Hal Prince. Zorba was Hal Prince and Michael Bennett. And my dad said, "Don't get into any more Hal Prince shows because they're so boring." And I said, "Oh my God, you have no idea how hard it is to get into the shows." And then I got into Annie, and he said, "Oh, Rita Carroll, this is the worst show in the world. Don't make me sit through this." He just wasn't that kind of guy. But then when I got into comedy. By that time, I think after my stepmother died, we got closer because it was a whole different relationship. So we did get a much closer relationship after she passed away. And he loved that I did comedy. So he said, because I would never, ever think that that's something you would ever do in your life. And that you're doing it is the most fantastic thing ever. So he was very supportive of me doing comedy. But by that time, I was 30.
Oh,
wow. 28. So it took him a while.
Yeah, that's very sweet though.
Yeah, but he absolutely, he would stay up and whenever I was on David Letterman, and he would always stay up and watch and call me. And, he was really a big fan, but he just didn't like Broadway shows. So I just stopped telling him that I got in a Broadway show again.
That's so amazing too, right? Like you weren't a good dancer. You were a great dancer. So to make it to Broadway.
I was a working dancer. I was a working dancer all the time.
Yeah.
Was there any point in your time where you really thought about maybe I have to choose between this dancing and comedy, like, or was it?
After Annie, I said I was 27 when I started, almost, and 28 when I started almost getting on shows. Bill Maher was the one who let me, when I was Silver, who was Bud Friedman's ex-wife, and she got the comedy club in the divorce. And for some reason, she didn't like me. And she just would pull me aside and say, if you don't go to a voice coach, I'm not going to let you on anymore.
What the fuck?
And I said, well, I just don't get it. I had a part on Broadway in Annie. So my voice was okay for that. But she said, you don't sound like a comedian. And I went, well, but the audience was laughing. So I was getting on 2 a.m, and Bill Maher came in one night and said, why aren't you getting on? Because you're funny. And I said, I don't know. He said, well, I'm the MC over Catch a Rising Star. So why don't you come over there and I can get you on there. So that was a really big step for me, but it was complicated because I had to take 2 buses and get a transfer because the improv was really good because I could just walk from Annie at the Alban Theater and go to the improv, but I had to get one crosstown and downtown to get. So I said, well, this is a commitment. I'm going to take the 2 buses because I couldn't afford the taxi. So. Right. And buses were very helpful in those days because I could always go over my material while I was on the bus and figure out in taxi, you're looking at the meter. But in the bus, you go, I'm just going to look at my jokes. So really, I spent a lot of my career on buses.
I remember Sinbad telling me that he had he had ridden the bus for free. There's a lot of bus drivers that gave him, this one guy gave him rides for free going to and from comedy clubs back in the day. And then when he finally made it, he remembered the bus driver and gave him a bunch of money or something like that. Cause he was like, you always let me ride for free. But that's a nice thing that there's a nice community there too.
Well, I did a bus tour with, are you ready for this? I don't know if you're going to know these people, but I'm going to say them. Well, you'll know Emo, Emo Phillips.
Emo Phillips. Yeah, absolutely.
Me, Emo, and Larry Bud Melman.
Oh my God.
David Letterman show. Now, if that isn't a trio,
that's amazing.
I don't know, but and we did a little tour, and Larry bought his friend. I can't remember his friend's name, but he bought one of his friends, and we did all these little colleges. It was a college tour. Me, Emo, and Larry Bud Melman. And Emo's very funny, and he's very funny in person too. And we would go, and I still am. I'm very, I have to do something, go to a gym. I have to swim. I have to play tennis. I have to do something. Otherwise I get crazy because I grew up so athletic. And Emo and I would go, when we were in a hotel, we would always find a pool and we would go swimming. And Emo would always get out of the pool and say, Rita, tell me the truth. Am I looking too muscular for my character? I say, no, Emo, you're still very skinny. Don't worry. You still look like Emo. It'll be okay. And I remember we got to this one gig, and it was a big room, and there were all these folding chairs in this high school or college or whatever it was. And they said, okay, you can start putting the chairs up now. And we didn't want Larry Bud to have to do it and his friend because they were 80 years old,
Yeah.
So Emo and I went, okay. And we just kind of just put up all the chairs, and then they had a little buffet, and Emo always took all the coleslaw, and we put the chairs back. And but we were very easy to get along with, and it was a really fun tour. And every time we'd pass a Taco Bell, Larry Bud would always go, Mexican's nice, because he'd always want us to stop at the Mexican restaurant. Mexican's nice. Okay. So anyway, so I had a lot of these silly memories, and I wrote them all in my book, and there's more where that came from. So there.
I know that there was you got on Carson. I think the path back then was Carson, and then maybe you got a TV show. Did you've been a stand-up forever though? You really, obviously you're amazing at it, but you really seem to love it. Did you have any in mind of getting a TV show, kind of being a writer?
A TV show. Yeah, I always had lots of pilots.
Yeah.
And in fact, my husband Martin, and I, we just looked at one of my first pilots because one of the people contacted me on Facebook and wanted to know about, and it was still funny, but it's just you have to really hit the right mark at the right time.
Right.
You have to get lucky. You have to. Martin's right here. He said you have to be a man, but he's funny. That's why I married him. He's always funny.
Lovely.
That's how I met. One of the reasons I went into comedy was I wanted to meet a funny man because I liked funny men.
Mhm.
And I said, where are funny men? Comedy, because I was a dancer and you meet funny men dancing. But anyway, so
I see where you're going.
some of them are delicious.
Yes.
So, so I said, where am I going to meet a funny man? It's going to be in a comedy club. And I started liking comedy. And that's how I met Martin, because he came into the Catch a Rising Star once, and he was, he hired me to do a show at the Edinburgh Festival.
Oh, wow.
New York stand-up comedy. And it was me, Richard Jenny, and Larry
God.
Amorose, who I know, my poor friend Richard Jenny.
I love Richard Jenny.
And Larry Amorose and Bill McCarty. And
wow.
the four of us did the Edinburgh. That was the four. No, wait, I got it wrong. Who was it? Oh, it was Bill, Larry, and me. And who did I say it was? But Richard Jenny was a different one. Well, I did Australia with Richard Jenny. I'm sorry, I got confused. This is why you had to help me with the book. Because I've done a lot of shows. It was Richard Jenny and Kelly Rogers was in Australia. Was Larry there? Come over here, Martin. Say hello.
Yeah, say hi.
Larry, wait, okay. It was Kelly was in Sydney, and then Larry. Where was Larry? Larry's in Palm Springs. But that's where he lives now.
I love this. I feel like I'm back home in Brooklyn. People shouting from a room to room, like
I know. I'm so bad.
And then
I
one
mixed
random
up all
person,
the
like
times in my book, and Martin had to straighten them all out and everything. But,
That's great.
In Australia, it was very far away from the Edinburgh Festival. Edinburgh Festival. It was me, Bill McCarty, and Larry, and that's who that was. And
Wow.
1984 it was.
That's where I was born.
Oh my gosh, shut up. Now, I have to go now, and I got something else to do. I was already 70 in 1980.
I'm sorry. I don't even know why I said that.
But
Oh,
anyway,
God.
I forgive you, and I love you anyway.
I appreciate it.
So anyway, what was the original question?
Oh,
Or did I just make up an answer? What was going on?
it doesn't matter anymore.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
even. Richard Jenny was the first.
Oh,
comedian
that's how I met my husband, and then
Oh,
he
that's
was
right.
funny. Yeah, okay, and he's funny, and then we get along, and then we've been married since 1988.
Oh, very
Wow.
nice. Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible. Holy
That's
shit.
good.
Yeah, that is good.
You want to say hello? No, he doesn't
Yeah,
want to say hello.
oh, you didn't want to say hello?
Come say
No.
hi.
Maybe he's in his bathing suit because we went swimming earlier. Okay, go
Oh,
on.
wow. Humble brag.
I
It's
love that you
freezing.
guys swim so much.
Yeah,
I gotta get a pool.
Well, I was going to play. I skipped my tennis group tonight because of you guys, because I wanted to talk to you. Because usually Monday night is tennis night.
Oh, thank
But
you for
no.
doing that. I appreciate.
No, I'm here talking to you, and I'm happy about it. So there, because it's fun.
Thank you. Also, if we ever meet in person, I like playing tennis, so I will be.
Oh, really? I love tennis.
Yeah, you're gonna kick my ass in it, but I like playing tennis.
Oh no, I'm very bad. I just really like. He just said she's terrible. I'm not terrible. Well, he's this guy. He's the guy. So when I first meet him, we're in Australia. Well, no, okay, I'll tell you the whole story. So he had a girlfriend, and I had a boyfriend, and then and also when I first worked for him in the Edinburgh Festival, he smoked, and I just couldn't stand smoke anymore because I was in the comedy clubs all the time, and I would come home smelling like cigarettes all the time because there were no rules in that time, and people just blow smoke up on the stage. So I said, I can't be with anyone who smokes. And even though he was very nice, I had a boyfriend who was bad in every way, but he didn't smoke. So anyway, so he had this girlfriend, and then, but we were always friends. And whenever he came through New York, he'd take me to dinner, take me to a show, because he was living on Australia now to get away from his mother, because that's another story. But so we would write letters. Remember letters?
Oh,
He would
yeah.
write me letters. And then I would write him, and he was write me letters from Australia. And then he kept saying, "Come to Australia because it's fun." And I said, "I have a boyfriend. I don't want." And then one day he said, "Come to Australia." And I just broken up with my boyfriend. I said, "Okay, let's just go. It's Christmas, and I've known him for years. He's a nice guy. Everyone loves going to. He took 2 other groups to Australia without me because he was doing all these tours, and I didn't want to go.
Wow.
So I went to Australia. And Martin had stopped smoking because he thought that he was having a pain in his side, and he's a big hypochondriac, and he thought he was going to die, but it turned out he wasn't drinking enough water. But by that time, he'd already stopped smoking. So I said, well, sometimes things happen for a good thing. He started drinking water and he stopped smoking and the pain went away.
Wow.
So then I moved in with him, and then that was that.
I love it.
Wait, no, we were on tennis. So what happened was, the show was such a bomb. And because it wasn't because we weren't funny, but it was this one. I'm going to get this right. It was me, Richard Jenny, and Larry Amoros. Okay. And we were in the Gold Coast of Australia. Oh. Okay. And he didn't know this, but nobody wanted this theater to be built because they wanted a dam, and because they needed something with their water. And instead they built the theater. So everyone was boycotting the theater, and all the taxi drivers would refuse to take anybody to the theater because they were boycotting it. So we lost a fortune, and I moved in with him to this gorgeous apartment that he rented in a high rise. Wow. And it was really fun. So if you can get along with somebody and fall in love when they're losing all of their money, it's real. Anyone can fall in love when you're making money, but to fall in love when you're losing money, that's really tricky. So, and then there was a tennis court downstairs, and one of his friends was playing tennis, and his girlfriend was in town, and we decided to play doubles. So we go down, and his friend's girlfriend had never played tennis before. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Be easy on her, hit the balls to him." And Martin said, "No, I want to win," and just started slamming the balls at the girl that played tennis. And I married him. So this is how he plays tennis. So that's why I can't play with him.
Oh my God, I love that.
And he does all these tricky spins where it goes backwards and forget it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But I love him anyway.
I'm hooked on the letters thing because I can't imagine what that must have been like. Like if I text somebody that I'm dating and I don't hear from them in an hour, I'm like, oh, they fucking hate me. You know what I mean? But letters is like,
it's immediate gratification now. There was not immediate gratification.
Yeah.
There was the letters, and it was denied. What's that? There's another word that I can't think of, but we would call each other and we would say important things because I was calling him from Australia and he was calling me from Australia. So, you don't want to just meander. No, I wasn't in Australia. I was in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I was like, yeah, but I feel like they can't possibly charge.
No, I was in LA and he was in Australia. Well, you know what I mean. So we would have, it's like when I used to rent tennis courts in the winter in New York, you ran for every ball because it was expensive. When a court is free, you go, well, that ball's over there, I'm not going for it. But when you're paying for the court, you have to really try to hit every ball. So that's the same thing when you're talking long distance to Australia. You have to say things that are meaningful. And then I moved in. He moved in with me. And then one day he looked and he said, "My green card is running out. Let's get married." And then it was so romantic. We got married at a courthouse.
Wow.
But there's a whole story in the book, but that was really, we were going to get married this one day, but he couldn't find a parking space. So we didn't get married that day. He couldn't find a space. He said, a few little swear words in there.
Yeah.
And then we got married a different day when he could find parking. But at that point, we didn't have I didn't want a wedding. I said, it's unnatural for me to stand with my back to the audience. Yeah. So, and when you get married, everyone's back there and you're facing this way. I can't do that. And the last thing I want to do is get in a gown. Oh my God, every night I'm in a gown. So we just got married. I was in shorts.
Fantastic. Oh my God. That's the best love story I think I've ever heard. How have you not made a movie about that?
Oh, there's so many ways they haven't made a movie about that. I can't even begin. I can't begin to tell you. But we did get married at this courthouse, and this lady said, I have two services, Phyllis, with the blue eyeshadow. I have two services available to you today, a religious and a civil. Which one would you prefer? And I said, whichever one comes with fries. And I was a comedian, so I had to say that. And then I started crying, and Martin is English, and he said, whatever you do, don't cry. And then I just started crying, and Martin said, what floor are the divorces on? And we've been happy ever since. And I was wearing mascara. I bought it at that point we had disposable cameras. Remember the paper?
Yeah.
You don't even know the paper
No, I know
camera.
what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
You wind them and...
Well, we had two. We had one that was brand new, and one that had one picture left in it. And we accidentally bought the one that had only one picture in it to our wedding. So the picture from our wedding is in the gift shop, and there's a woman behind me in front of a refrigerator drinking a Coca-Cola like this. My favorite thing. I'll go get it, Martin.
Please.
It's in my bathroom. You want to go get he's going to go get it. It's my wedding picture. I love
That's
it.
so great.
Mm.
So now when you started out doing stand-up, did you have anybody that you admired coming up that you idolized, that you tried to emulate?
Weirdly, I liked Woody Allen because I was a quiet Jewish person, and he was a quiet Jewish person. And I liked that for most of his jokes, the majority, that you didn't have to be a man or a woman. They were just funny.
Right.
Yeah.
So I said, let's listen to him and see how he does it. And I used to sit there with the record and diagram the jokes about where the laughs came.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's out of focus too. Okay, this is us and the woman behind me. Wait, did I do it right?
Hold it up a little higher.
A little higher. A little higher.
A little higher.
Oh,
Oh,
right
there.
Oh my God.
That's me in my wedding sweater. And that's Martin. He wore his blue suit and his tie. And that's the woman drinking the Coke in back of us at the refrigerator. That's our wedding
my
picture.
God. That's
How
incredible.
wonderful.
You know what's great about that photo is if you two would have went missing, prime suspect, that woman. They would have found that one photo.
That's That's what you have to call.
Oh my God. I love that. That's like the first photo bomb, I think.
Oh yeah, it is. And she didn't even know she's in our wedding picture.
Yeah.
And we have this other picture that we have that I love because I came home on New Year's Eve we were in Australia, and somebody took a picture of us in the house, and there are two people in the house and we don't know who they were. We can't remember who they were. And they're just sitting there in our house. So that's another picture that I enjoy. So I think you have to have a skewed sense. What was your question? The comedians.
The comedian that you would idolize.
Who I like. So
Woody
I
Allen.
love Woody Allen. I used to diagram his jokes going, where's the laugh? Why do people laugh? What causes a laugh? Doing all the things because I found it interesting. And then for some reason, I remembered my mother liked Jack Benny.
Okay.
And he was also somebody who didn't look funny and was understated. And I said, I started going to the Museum of Broadcasting, which at that point was a room about as big as this office, now like a whole building. And I would get out the videotape, 8-track, I don't know what kind of tapes, and I put them in the machine and I watch all the old Jack Benny shows and I tried to figure out why he was funny. So every day I created my own little comedy school. And every day I would go because in New York, you could always do something where you could learn something. They would always have film festivals. And so I would go to Buster Keaton film festivals and Charlie Chaplin, who I didn't like as much as I liked Buster Keaton, even though he was more famous, and figure out why I liked him. Jacques Tati, who I also thought was terrific. Preston Sturgis. They had all these things. So I would always every day go to a different place and do a different thing to try to figure out how to be funny. Yeah. And this is a different comedy, the Smothers Brothers and things in the library. So that's how I kind of taught myself. And then at night I would go to the comedy clubs and try something and see if it was funny or not.
Did you figure out why you liked Buster Keaton versus Chaplin? Because that's an interesting
understatement. I love understatement, which was why I'm not more successful. Because you have to be obvious, and I can't be obvious. Even when I'm trying to be obvious, I'm not obvious, and it makes me so angry. People say the understated Rita Rudner, and I'm trying so hard to be
stated,
and I can't do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, but I feel like that's what makes those jokes and your your stand-up so it hits so much harder though, because it's like stand-up's always supposed to be a twist and a surprise, but yours is double that because you are understated and you never see it coming. Like it's a beautiful like hit. It's a jab to the gut.
I try all the time. That's what I really try. And still, whenever I talk to another comedian, it's always the greatest thrill to think of a new joke. I just love thinking of a new joke. It's still my favorite thing. However, Martin and I, as you said, we write movies and we've written lots of movies and we've written plays and we're doing a new play at the Laguna Playhouse because I have a house near there and I don't like to travel. So and it's fun because I do New Year's Eve there too because they do it with New York and I'm home by 10 o'clock. But I don't like to go to parties or stay out late. Another reason I'm not successful. I mean, I was successful, but anyway.
Right.
So we write comedy plays. We did one in New York that transferred to New York 2 years ago, right before the pandemic. That was really funny. And I just like to do things that are funny.
Do you like, I mean, what was it a switch that you have to turn on and off between like a stand-up mind, writing jokes like that, and then to plays and stuff like that and incorporating it? Because they are very funny and you are very good at it. But is it something you have to consciously turn on and off when you're working on different projects?
It's so different. It's the difference between panel funny and joke funny. When you go on a TV show and then you sit down and conversation funny to somebody is different from a joke funny because a joke funny has to go further than panel funny. And comedy has to come more from a character in a play than it does from a surprise. So, everything's different, but I find all that fascinating, which is good because otherwise I'm too old to be a dancer. So it's fascinating.
Is there one you preferred more than the other at different times?
Stand-up is always my favorite because I got to remember so many lines when you do these shows. And I did a show with a really good actor called Charles Shaughnessy, and he was the person in The Nanny, the father in The Nanny, Fran Drescher. And he and Martin went to school together. So that's how we talked him into just being in a play with me. Otherwise he was, So it was this somebody sent me this play and it was called Act 3 and Martin and I really liked it and Martin directed it and it was all these letters that I had to memorize and do it in order and I was playing two different characters and one had this voice and one had that voice and it was really fun to do but so scary. So one day during the preview I accidentally did the last letter in the show in the middle of the show and there was nowhere to go with it and everybody just stood there. And finally, I just had to break character and said, I've made a mistake. We're going to have to go back now. And Charles said, I was on the other side of the stage going, I didn't know what to do. And Martin was coming out. And he came out from the wings and said, I'm so angry at her now. And then the playwright came and said, do this every night. This is the best this ever play has ever gone. It was just horrible, but it was funny. But it was a preview. I didn't mess up during the actual show. But you have to, when I do my show, like I'm talking to you, I can just be me. Sure. And if I mess up something, I can just, But like the first time when I came back after the pandemic and I did my first show in like a year and a half or something, and it was a casino in San Diego. And I started this joke at the beginning and I couldn't remember the punchline. And I said to the audience, I said, it's been such a long time. And I got this set up and I know there's something that comes after it. And during this show, I'm going to do lots of other jokes, but I'm always going to be thinking of what that punchline is. And by the end of the show, I'm going to remember it. Sure, an hour later at the end, I remembered the punchline. And everybody stood up and yay, she remembered it. So I find that honesty is always the best thing in comedy, because if you try to be phony, they sense it. So just honest. That's it.
That's the best advice ever given, is that
my first heckler, when they heckled me at the Improv, I said, I'm so new at this. I don't know what to do with you. Come back when I'm more experienced. Yeah. And and that worked. And that got the audience with me. But that was the honest way. I just didn't want to say, I don't bother you at McDonald's when you go.
Oh, yeah.
So I just said, just come back later and I'll be able to deal with you.
I never liked those kind of like the ones everybody had too. That I never go to your job and
No,
slept.
no,
Yeah,
no, no. I
hated
would
that
never.
stuff.
No,
Yeah.
nothing. No. What is it called? Prepackaged sentences.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Did you see the recent thing that's going on in the news and everything? The viral video of it's
I don't know anything about anything. But the beer. Martin told me about the beer can. Yes.
Yeah.
How terrible is that?
I know.
Bad
That's
with
insane.
these people, anything goes. I had two people. I did a show in some place. It was where was it, Martin? South Carolina? Yeah. And this woman wrote me a horrible letter and said, I had tickets to your show, but I read that you said something about, I don't even say his name. And I'm returning my tickets. And I just wrote back, good. Let somebody else sit in the chairs. I don't need you.
Right.
But,
yeah.
People get so aggressive these days, and how horrible that someone would. But I'm glad that this woman is prospering from it.
Absolutely.
But I hope that doesn't continue. I mean, I had little things like that happen because I forgot. I think it was me, Gilbert, and it was always me. It was the headliner, the middle act, and the guy who had the car. So who could drive you to the gig, and we played this place where they had barrels of peanuts. And they started throwing peanuts at us.
Wow.
Just because it was fun.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't recommend that either. But it wasn't like a beer can, which can actually, this was just humiliating and degrading. It wasn't physically harmful.
Yeah, these people are getting bolder and bolder. And it's really kind of weird. It's a weird time to be doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's why I'm here safely in my office. And he's still it's dangerous. He's right there.
Yeah.
And he's got a beer can. Oh my God. I tell you, funny all the time.
That's where we just play the color bars on the TV. And we're like, we've never even seen those before. Yeah.
I'm back.
Oh my God.
I did actually. I don't know if you can see right here.
Yeah.
It's a little darker. I got hit by a tennis ball.
Holy shit.
Oh.
I got hit by a tennis ball in the head.
Recently?
Last week. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I tried to cover it up.
No, you look fine. I didn't notice.
Did a great job.
Yeah.
There it is. And then over here, I have a scar because I didn't look when I was taking groceries out, and I cut myself on the head here, and it was really bad. And Martin rushed me to the emergency room, and I was just bleeding from the head because something evidently over here it bleeds a lot. And they said, they took me to the side and they said, okay, you can tell us the truth. How did he hit you? He's saving my life. And I was just bleeding, and poor Martin's standing over there. And I just thought I could really get even with him now for all the times that he yelled at me because I got lost and I couldn't read a map. And I told him to go left when it was right. And I said, but no, I was good. And I said, no, I could hit my head on the cupboard door because the cabinet door. And they said, no, really, tell us.
Yeah. He's inches away from jail if you just wink the wrong way.
Luckily we were really getting along, so I didn't want to
imagine if you had something in your eye and you were like, no, everything's fine. Wink.
So I have the tennis ball, I have the thing. This is how I did it. So because I decided, because my daughter had a birthday and there was a helium balloon, and she left it at the party, and I wanted to save it for her because so I took the helium balloon and I put it in the trunk of the car, and while I was closing the trunk, the helium balloon started falling out, and I put my head on and so there. That's not in the book.
No.
Wow.
Even for the paperback.
Neither is the tennis ball. Oh, that's additional material. Yeah,
exactly. There you go. With 5 more pages of material.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you for coming on and spending time with us. I got to ask you the same 3 questions I ask every guest that's been on the show so far.
Gosh, now I'm going to fail. Go on.
I know. It's an Israel-Palestine question. So no, I'm just kidding. We like to really surprise our guests. No, but so the first question's a bit of a soft. Oh, wait, do we have any questions from the?
You know what? We did have a couple, only because I wanted to bring this up. So the more was asking, when did the writing start? And he said Academy Awards, bravo. When did that kick in for you?
Well, it started out of necessity because I went to the improv and I started talking, and I was allowed in after I auditioned, and I wasn't on the street anymore. And I asked Steve Middleman, how much does comedy material cost?
Mhm.
And he said about $3,000 for 5 minutes, and there's no guarantee it will be funny. And I said, well, I guess I should write my own. And that's how it started, because that's what you have to do.
Mhm.
And then the Academy Awards, Steve Martin actually called me up. I didn't even know he knew who I was, and asked me to be one of the writers on the Academy Awards. And I said, but Steve, I've never written for anybody except me. I don't know how to do it. And he said, it's so easy. You write for yourself and then you give it to me. So I said, oh, okay. And I said, but if it's not funny, I'm going to feel bad. And he said, it will be my fault. So I said, okay, then. And I was so much fun. I wrote with him and Bruce Valanche and John Max, and we would go to his house, and it was just the best time. And he's one of my absolute favorite people and performers. And I think he's a genius.
So
No,
great.
was that the question? Did I pass?
Well, no, that was a question from the audience. I haven't gotten to the three yet. But
Well, that's the only one I want to answer because I got it right.
Yeah, you'll get the other ones right. It's fine.
Oh,
Well,
no, it's pressure.
It's not. You'll be great. So the first one's a softball one, so it's not too bad. So it's if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self and give yourself a piece of advice that would help you today, what would it be?
Always bring a sweater. Okay,
Bravo.
that's all I got. Okay, thank you.
Beautiful. Loved
You
it.
don't know. You don't know. It could be hot
Absolutely.
outside, but you go in the movie theaters air conditioned.
Yeah. Oh, good point. Very good.
Always
point.
bring a sweater.
Yeah, I feel like you and my mother would get along.
Good advice.
Um,
My wife.
Hoping. Second question is
That's another strike against you. You were born in 1983, and I'm getting along with your mother.
no.
I compared you to my wife.
I meant no. Come back. At least bring the dog.
Rita has left the building.
I love this. Oh, she disappeared. Oh, there we go. Oh my God,
Yeah.
what a baby! What a
She's
good
on the
dog.
cover.
She's
There.
adorable.
She made the
Isn't
cover.
she? She's my little girl.
She and
Can
I
you
have
believe
the
somebody found this dog, left this dog on the street?
unbelievable.
Mhm.
She and I have the same hair when we both wake up from a nap.
But she's a bleach blonde.
Yeah. So second question is, what had to end in your life, good or bad, that led you to where you are today?
I don't understand the question.
So what in your life had to end, like stop happening,
What
either
did
good or
in my
bad,
life had to stop happening? Go on.
that led you to where you are today, good or bad? So whatever had to end, like a
I
relationship.
still have no idea what you're saying.
So like, I can see laughing in the back. So wait,
Yeah,
so
it's going fast.
wait, no,
Something
it's fine.
ended.
Here's the thing.
Wait,
I'm gonna cut all
Martin,
this.
what's going on? What? Oh, okay. He gave me the answer. Say it
Okay.
again. Say
Okay,
the question again.
What had to end in your life, good or bad, that led you to where you are today?
Martin just told me I had to stop dating bad men.
There you go.
That's a
And
nice job,
and
Martin.
Yeah, good job, Martin. Thank you.
And the last question is, if this was a genuine dystopia, and more so than it is now, and there was, you could either have your choice of a government collapse, aliens, zombies, a comet heading toward the Earth, or climate
Either way,
change,
anything.
but you wake up and you know, and everybody knows it's their last day on Earth. What would be
This is so depressing.
No, it's gonna but it could be whatever you want.
Fun. Okay, keep going.
But it's everybody knows. It's everybody's last day. What would be how would you want to go out? What would be your epic death?
I would have a lot of ice cream.
All right.
Okay.
I enjoy ice cream.
That's you look like it's like I'm gonna make this happen. I'm not. It's
I do.
fine.
I just. I would, Martin. What's a better answer than that? If it was the last day on Earth, what would I do? I'd probably play tennis. Go swimming. Walk my dog. Martin said he would start smoking again. You're never smoking again.
Oh.
No more smoking.
Well, I
Wanna
know
see
you guys would be having an
Betsy
argument.
She conducts the orchestra. Ask Betsy a question. Ask her if she knows the answer.
What is the best dog treat to eat for a human?
I know. I know. Oh, 2 arms up means I know. She can swim. Martin said, "When did I?" Oh wait.
No,
Oh
you're here.
no.
You're here. We see you. You're here. You're
You're
What
still
did I
here.
do?
Oh, did she make you guys disappear?
It's okay. You're still here.
Martin, Betsy turned the camera off.
We can still we can still
We
see
can
you.
see you
I
and
can
hear you.
You. Okay, well, this is just very dystopian.
Yeah.
You're not. I'm looking at a black screen and it's the end of the world. Oh, it's so depressing.
Get ready to
Let's go
swim.
home. Yeah, let's get the rackets. This is my there's my. You should see what's on my screen now. This is when I had to zip line with my daughter.
You went ziplining?
Oh, there. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I did everything with my daughter because Martin won't do anything athletic because he's English, and his idea that his exercise is to read very fast. I did all the water surfing and the paddle boarding and the kayaking and the zip lining, and I'm the athletic girl.
Nice. Where's Martin from in England?
He's from London.
Oh, London. Okay, my grandfather was from Brighton.
Oh, I love Brighton. He took me to Brighton.
Oh, nice.
We have a picture where we're at the beach sitting on the stones looking for the sun.
Oh, that's beautiful. Is there somebody with a can of Coke behind you?
No, that's special.
Okay, that's the only one.
Well, this was so much fun, and I'm sorry if I didn't answer the questions right. But
Oh no, you
were
crushed it.
beyond perfect.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well, it was very fun talking to both of you. I really enjoyed it, and it was worth missing. That's hard to say. Tennis tonight.
Oh, thank you so
you
much.
so
That means a
much.
lot.
Right here. No, right here. This
Right. I will make sure we get the book out there. We'll absolutely plug it, and I can't wait to see you live. I hope you're going to be over on the East Coast soon.
Thank you so much. Have a nice whatever day it is, and don't be dystopian.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Have a great one.
Take
Pleasure.
care.
I look like I have a beard.
Oh my God. Take care.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Dystopia tonight.